Welcome back to the V's Showdown. Today we're diving into an absolutely insane Titan scenario. What if Godzilla evolved in 2014 and monsters pushing each other to their absolute limits? How far can the king of the monsters be pushed? And what happens when something even stronger rises to challenge him? Let's find out. 2014 Hawaii. The male Muto gets hit by rockets while trying to eat a nuclear bomb. He roars as his claw glows bright red, and he slams it onto the ground, making an EMP ring out across the dark forest, making the jets fall out of the air. The Muto makes its way to the airport where it steps onto a plane, exploding it as Godzilla steps onto land. Godzilla roars at the Muto, making him turn around, roaring back at him. The Muto flies into the air over Godzilla. He tries to bite but misses as the Muto lands on his back. Godzilla tries to shake him off. The Muto's claws stab into Godzilla's back as the Muto drags him, making him fall over onto a group of planes exploding below him. Godzilla gets up as he chases the Muto as the flying organism circles above him, dive-bombing the Gojira, stabbing his EMP-filled claws into his back. Godzilla roars in pain as the EMP weakens his system. The male Muto rips out his dorsal plates. Blood rains down from his sides as he falls onto his back trying to stab the Muto. The Muto launches himself off of Godzilla's back before his dorsal plates stab into the concrete of the ground. The Muto flies away into the clouds as Godzilla rolls over, standing back up. Why was he so weak? A male Muto of all things shouldn't have seriously hurt him this badly. He knows if he tries to fight the male and female Muto, he will surely die. He jumps into the water, his blood staining the water as he swims to the Arctic. Godzilla steps onto the frosted land, going into an ice cave, for only Abzu to jump onto his back neck, its tentacle spikes stabbing into Godzilla's gills. Godzilla roars in pain as he grabs the Titan and throws him against the ice. Godzilla's dorsal plates glow blue as he shoots a weakened atomic breath at the attacking Titan. Abzu roars in pain as the red glow in the ice is soon replaced by a deep violet glow as Godzilla's energy mixes with it. Godzilla, now out of the remaining energy, falls down, burying himself into the ice as his dorsal plates stick out, slowly absorbing all the high energy. Hours later, the male Muto arrives in San Francisco, calling out to the female as she emerges from the smoke. Back in the Arctic bases all lose power. Military boats that are monitoring Godzilla lose power as Godzilla absorbs everything in the area. The ice creaks and breaks as Godzilla's eye snaps open. He needs to release some energy he's overloading. Military personnel watch from the decks, looking over the frozen land. And in a split second, a violet beam shoots out from under the ice into the sky. As Godzilla releases the energy, after a few seconds the beam stops, leaving behind purple smoke. A hand with thin spikes covering it grabs onto the land as Godzilla pulls himself up. His body is tinted red, his dorsal plates are now sharper and more carved. He's slimmer with a more agile build, his body scattered with pink scales. His hands are covered in a thin layer of spikes, with his tail being more agile and flexible, having a stinger and teal suction cups. His tongue now split in three, being longer and prehensile. He roars into the sky, fully powered up. He jumps into the water, swimming to San Francisco. The male Muto flies above the parasitic nest before a violet beam shoots out, slicing the wing of the Muto as he falls, crashing into a building as he falls onto the ground. His mate looks overseeing as Godzilla steps onto land, looking at the pair with burning hatred. The female Muto roars as she charges full speed, and Godzilla charges at the female. He tackles the Muto down. They both crash into a building as Godzilla flips over the debris, sliding to a stop as he gets back up. Godzilla slams his foot down onto the female's chest, his back glowing a bright purple. But before he can fire, the male Muto jumps onto Godzilla's back, pulling him away. Godzilla stumbles back as Godzilla tries to stab the Muto in the head with his new stinger, but misses and stabs into the shoulder as the male bites his neck. Godzilla pulls the Muto off, slamming him into a building as he's about to shoot a beam, but gets hit in the face by the female Muto. Godzilla tail whips the female Muto, making her stumble back. A violet glow climbs up his back as he shoots a purple beam out. The female Muto tries to EMP, but it's too late as her head is burned off by the beam. Her body falls back limb dead. The male Muto jumps into the air before Godzilla catches him and slams him into the ground, slamming his foot down onto his chest, crushing it. Godzilla roars into the air as he jumps back into the water. A few months later, Godzilla is resting at the bottom of the ocean before sensing something, the Muto Prime. Godzilla jumps out of the water roaring as he dives. He steps onto the land of Boston, seeing the Muto Prime looking for radiation. Godzilla roars at the Prime, charging the Prime looks up to only get tail whipped across the city. The Prime stands back up, seeing the Godzilla charging at her. She charges up and shoots her sonic roar. Godzilla dodges and tackles the Prime to the ground. Godzilla grabs the Prime's jaw, the spikes on his hand stabbing into her as he forces her mouth open. A violet beam shoots from his mouth and right down the throat of the Muto Prime, decapitating her head from her body. Godzilla roars into the sky in victory. Skull Island. The ground shakes and splits apart as a claw stabs into the greenery of the island. Kong runs to the noise, stopping short as he watches a titan rise from his land. The creature emerges, a white glow coming from its glowing slit of an eye. It's a Muto. But not just any Muto, but the Alpha Muto, an ancient female Muto that went dormant on Skull Island and ended up absorbing the DNA of all the Skull Island creatures, including the great apes themselves, gaining intelligence. With a skull crawler-like feature on her head, mother long legs, claws, mega turtle blood, and more. She roars and Godzilla's eyes shoot open, hearing the new Alpha emerge. Kong beats his chest and roars at the parasite. Kong charges, surprising the Muto, jumping into the air and punching her in the face. The Alpha Muto shakes her head slightly before slamming her arm into Kong, making him go flying into a mountain. Kong roars before being stabbed in the chest and thrown across the island, landing into the bamboo forest of the mother long legs. A purple beam fires from the water, and the Muto dodges by ducking under the beam before looking back, seeing the Godzilla stepping onto land, roaring at the Titan parasite. The Muto roars back, slamming her from legs onto the ground before charging. The Muto rears up, but Godzilla nearly dodges before her claws dig into the ground. Godzilla wraps his tail around her, using the momentum to throw her across the ground. The Alpha Muto skids across the ground before getting back up. Godzilla charges at her. Her claws glows bright white before she rears up into the air. Godzilla stops hesitating before she slams her claws into the ground. A EMP shockwave rings across the island, breaking apart the rock as it knocks Godzilla off his feet, slamming face first into the ground. The Alpha Muto, while he's down, runs to the water, jumping into it, swimming away. The whole island trembles as mountains collapse. Godzilla gets up, seeing leaf wings flying off the island, skull crawlers trying to swim away. The whole island is falling. Godzilla roars as he runs into the water, swimming after the Muto. Onagawa Nuclear Power Plant, Japan. Godzilla steps onto the land, seeing a white hollow earth portal made by the Muto. Godzilla huffs before going into the portal. Godzilla flies through the air as he lands somewhere in hollow earth. He stands up as a warbet gets thrown past him. He looks and sees the Alpha Muto killing every Titan she sees. Nothing stands a chance. A violet glow climbs up Godzilla's back, his eyes glowing brighter than the stars. The Muto looks back, seeing the Godzilla charging up. Her claw glows bright white. She lifts up her arm. Godzilla shoots a purple beam. The parasite slams her arm down onto the ground. A white shockwave dome spreads out. It hits Godzilla. His once mighty beam reduces to fire them to ambers, his most powerful weapon now gone. Godzilla roars and charges. The Muto, now realizing that she locked him in close quarters, charging at him with her head down. Godzilla tries to grab her, but she slams her skull head right into his chest. His ribs crack and crunch as he gets sent flying back onto his back. Godzilla quickly rolls over to avoid her claw being stabbed into the ground. Godzilla stumbles up and jumps into the air. He lands on the ceiling and runs, and the Alpha Muto follows. Godzilla runs and runs before being sliced into it by white walls of energy as he falls onto the ground. The Muto stands over the defeated Godzilla, looking down at him. Godzilla tries to charge up, but his dorsals only faintly glow. The Muto rears up into her rear legs, her arms glowing bright white as she roars. Godzilla looks up, seeing this parasite, as she slams both arms into Godzilla, slamming with enough force to lift the Arctic plate they are on in hollow earth on the surface lift into the air before slamming back into place, causing an earthquake. A shock wave rings out across the land. All the Titans look up, seeing the king of the monsters fall. Godzilla falls back limb as all the Titans watch in shock. The Alpha Muto roars in victory as all the Titans around bow to the new queen. On the surface, the earthquake shakes the Arctic. The ice breaks and shatters as it shakes Ghidorah free from his ice prison. He rises from the hole, looking across the land, roaring, letting the planet know the false king is awake. The Muto, hearing the roar all the way in hollow earth, walks beside the Gojira, slamming her arms on the ground, making a hollow earth portal open. Ghidorah sees a white glow come from under the ice as the ice shoots into the air as a Titan he's never seen before rises from the depths. Ghidorah grins, lifting his wings out, trying to intimidate. The Alpha Muto stands up on her hind legs, becoming the same height as the Golden Hydra. Ghidorah roars, his neck's glowing yellow as he shoots all three beams at the queen. The Muto roars in pain, but the beams do nothing but scorch her tough skin. She slams her claw into the ice, making another EMP ring out. Ghidorah's beams flicker out, reduced to sparks, also beamless. Ghidorah roars, sliding across the ice as the Muto charges. Ghidorah bites down onto her arms and lifts her up, struggling to hold her weight before slamming her down onto the ice. She roars before her claws glows white and slams it into Ghidorah's chest, making him fall back. The Alpha Muto gets up and stabs her claws into his wings, preventing him from flying away. Ghidorah roars in defiance as the Muto's mouth starts to glow white. Ghidorah's tail tries to stab into the Muto's head, but the spikes only scrapes across the skull and quickly wrap both tails around her neck, pulling her back onto her hind legs, making her shoot a thin white beam that cuts an ice mountain in the distance in half. Ghidorah quickly regenerates his wings and flies out of her grip, but not before two of his heads get cut off and he falls down in the distance. The Muto is about to follow until she hears it, a roar, not just any rose, but Godzilla's back in Boston. The Muto roars before jumping into the water. Ghidorah looks back, seeing that the parasite is no longer there. He crawls to the portal, unable to regenerate, too weak to do so. He jumps into the portal, landing in hollow earth, where off in the distance he sees an icy land with a very lair. Back on the surface, the Alpha Muto steps onto the land, seeing Godzilla glowing purple. While the Muto and Ghidorah was fighting, Godzilla managed to absorb some of hollow earth's energy, getting a buff. Godzilla roars, the Muto charges, trying to ram into him again, but he dodges to the side and bites down onto her neck. She roars as his teeth digs into her flesh, and he lifts her up and tosses her into a building. Suddenly the temperature drops. 166 degrees drops to -75. Godzilla suddenly gets it by 3 cyan beams, freezing him in a block of ice. Ghidorah comes from the sky, now forming a blizzard. In hollow earth, he went to the lair and absorbed the Shimo DNA, becoming Frostbite Ghidorah. Ghidorah dives bombs when the Muto gets out of the rubble to get slammed into the ground and lifted into the air by Ghidorah. The ice around Godzilla breaks and cracks as a purple pulse shoots out from him, freeing him. He sees the Muto slam into the ground, seeing the diamond dragon in the sky. His back glows a bright purple as he shoots a beam out, catching Ghidorah off guard, as the beam burns his chest, making him fall into the ground. Godzilla gets ramped into the side by the Alpha Muto, making him skid across the ground. The Muto's arms glow white, shooting a white wall of energy out. Godzilla dodges, and it hits Ghidorah, who is getting back up, cutting off his head before it regenerates to only get hit by Godzilla, throwing the Muto. Ghidorah's neck glows blue, but before he can fire, an EMP rings out, disabling both Alpha Titan's beams. Ghidorah bites down onto the Muto and throws her across the city. He flies into the air, trying to land on Godzilla and pick him up, but Goji catches the Diamond Hydra and slams him into the ground. Godzilla's shoulder gets sliced open by a white beam from the Alpha Muto. Godzilla roars and charges at the parasite. The Muto tries to bite the Godzilla, but he dodges, stabbing both his stingers into her leg, trying to get her stuck in one place, but her skin is too tough to fully stab through. Godzilla gets hit back by the Muto. Suddenly, a flash of bright blue light shines across the city, and a blue shockwave crawls across the land, freezing everything in ice. Ghidorah powered up by a power station and got strong enough to freeze the whole planet. Trees get covered in ice, oceans freeze solid, the water in clouds turns to ice, every living organism is frozen solid. Ghidorah roars as the whole planet is turned into an ice wasteland worse than the Ice Age. Godzilla breaks free from the ice, and so does the Muto, but Ghidorah, now covered in a thin layer of blue lightning, flies into the air right above the parasite. The Alpha MUTO's arms glow as she raises them into the air ready to EMP, but before she can, Ghidorah slams his wings together, causing a big flash to shoot down. Godzilla gets pushed back by the force, but when the dust clears, he sees an ice mountain bigger than the Rocky Mountains, seeing the Alpha Muto frozen in the very middle mid-EMP. Ghidorah lands on top of the ice, doing his alpha call despite most titans being frozen solid, unable to get let free. Godzilla roars at the false king. Ghidorah's neck glows cyan, shooting 3 beams out that Godzilla runs from. The beams impact the ground, leaving massive ice spikes taller than the skyscrapers. Godzilla's back glows a violet as he shoots a beam at Ghidorah, and he shoots his 3 back. They collide at a stalemate before Godzilla adds more power, overpowering Ghidorah's beams and Ghidorah's dodges using his necks. He flies into the air and slams down onto Godzilla, lifting him into the air and slamming him into the ground. Godzilla grabs Ghidorah's right head and shoots his beam right down its throat, before grabbing the left head and snapping its jaw as the middle bites down onto his neck, lifts him up and slams him back down. Godzilla kicks off Ghidorah, being standing back up, and runs out of the city. Ghidorah lifts off into the air, following behind. Godzilla steps onto the frozen ocean, running on the ice, making his way to France with the frozen storm right behind him. He makes it to France, getting to the nearest nuclear power plant and absorbing every last drop of energy before Ghidorah lands behind him. Ghidorah sees Godzilla. Godzilla's skin now cracked, glowing a bright violet as he roars into the sky, being energized. But instead of fighting, he continues to run. Ghidorah snickers at the wild goose chase but flies back into the air. Godzilla stops at power plant. Ghidorah not intercepting yet. Godzilla now glowing bright violet, the ice turning into nothing. Not steam, not evaporating, but into nothing within a 5-mile radius. Thermonuclear Godzilla. Ghidorah lands onto the ground, refreezing the ground before it instantly melts. Ghidorah roars as Godzilla roars back, charging. Ghidorah's mouth glows a bright blue, keeping his mouth shut as he shoots his beam, making his head be covered in lighting as he bites down onto Godzilla, trying to freeze him. But his teeth melt the bone, turning to nothing. The middle head shoots his beam, but it merely does nothing. Godzilla grabs Ghidorah, his claws slicing through his skin like a hot knife on butter. Godzilla throws Ghidorah. Godzilla walks over, stomping his foot down onto the Hydra's chest. Ghidorah roars defiantly, and Godzilla roars back before he grabs the last Ghidorah head and crashes it as it melts in his hands. Godzilla roars into the sky, Ghidorah being defeated. And that wraps up this Titan showdown. Monster battles like this remind us just how unpredictable the world of giant monsters can be, where power, survival, and dominance are always on the line. But there are plenty more battles to explore. Until next time, stay epic.